For episode 10, we're about to meet Mandora in just a minute, but first of all, let's begin the story with Lionel and Snarf. So, anyway, Lionel and Snarf just saw a metal box that was in the middle of the grass. They've never seen anything like it before. So, when Lionel suggested that they should check it out, but Snarf says maybe we should just leave it alone, he suggested. Well, according to Snarf in his case, he told Lionel that he didn't like the looks of that box at least a bit. So when Lionel went closer and closer and heard there was someone or something inside, that's when he told Snarf about it. And then Snarf says, "Well, it's just like what the sign says. It says stay away," he said. But despite Snarf's warning, that's when Lionel says, "Oh, come on, you worry so much." But Snarf tried to plead his case to Lionel to say, "You know what happened to Curiosity and what happened to the cat? Just a little peek," Lionel said. "What's it gonna hurt?" So he opened up the box and the three prisoners ran out. There are Burnout, Plutar, and of course Quick Pick. Now Lionel knew that what Snarf said was true about leaving things alone, and now he wished he had. So long story short, Quick Pick stood up Lionel and Snarf, and then after that he left. Well, according to Lionel, he says, well, at least he's being polite, but then Snarf realizes that his coin purse is missing. He said, that polite son of a gun took my coin purse. But Lionel says, oh, come on, you cannot possibly accuse someone without any proof. Proof? Snarf says, if you want proof so bad, then where's your sword? And that's when Lionel realizes that his sword was missing. So both Lionel and Snarf went through the grass to find the three missing bad guys that Lionel had accidentally let out. But Snarf and Lionel went right back where they started. Now that the three criminals had somehow disappeared, and that's when Lionel says, "Oh dear, what have I done? Look what I did. This is what I get for being so curious. I made a fool of myself." But then wait a minute, something or someone just came up from up above. So when Lionel and Snarf looked up, they saw that it's Mandora, and she's on her electrocharger. So after Mandora and her electrocharger spun around a little bit, she led it into the grass and found out that the metal box that Lionel had found earlier is now empty. So then she says, all right, who's responsible for this? Who opened the box? I did, Lionel confessed, and he started to apologize. So after Lionel claimed his case that the three prisoners that needed some help somehow, and that's when Mandora was very upset. She says, help! You see what you've done? You let out all the three criminals that I was about to pick up and take them to the penal prison, she said. So when Lionel apologized again and then said, I had no idea, and then she, according to what Mandora said, had insulted Lionel, and that for Snarf, he wasn't amused of it one bit, and then asked her, just who you think you are insulting him like this? And so Mandora was more than glad to introduce herself, that she's an intergalactic officer. So what Mandora says that now she has to recapture all the three criminals and put them back to where they were, and was asking Lionel and Snarf to help her, and then wants to know if there's a area that Plutar might be located. And Lionel says, well, there is one place that I could think of, and that would be the living ooze, he said. So Mandora, after she learned it from Lionel, she says, hop on. So they did, both Lionel and Snarf, so they're heading to the living ooze. According to Mandora, that's where Plutar, the first criminal on the list, should be headed at. So on the way to the living ooze, that's when Mandora told Lionel what Plutar was guilty for. She says that everything that Plutar touched, it dies. Plants, trees, and everything else. So the trio knew that they had no time to lose, and so they had to hurry. So back with Plutar, he is polluting everything that he touches, just like Mandora said. And after he approaches the water and puts his hands in it, that's when he heard a voice saying, who are you? Who do you think you are polluting water and trees? That's my job. Then Plutar looked over his shoulder and he's face to face with a living ooze that he just met for the first time. So Plutar started pleading his case with the living ooze to say you don't work very hard enough, and then the living ooze just pleads his case. He said that he doesn't need help from anything or especially anyone. So, when Plutar goes next to speak in his case to say, if this swamp is the way to decay everything, then you can forget it. With my help, we can both do it. It's a lot faster that way, he said. So after Living Ooze had traded an insult with Plutar, but then Plutar says, I'll tell you what we'll do. If we work together, we could turn this entire planet into a wasteland. But we have to be quick about it, he said. The reason? Well, Plutarch just pleaded his case to say that Mandora's on her way right now. And when the Living Ooze was asking how she was able to harm them, well, Plutarch confessed that Mandora has the most powerful weapon that could do the job, he said. So long story short, both Plutar and the Living Ooze agreed to work together to stop Mandora. So speaking of Mandora, and along with Lionel and Snarf, they are now on their way to the Living Ooze. And they didn't have to look for very far because there's the living ooze in Plutar. So long story short, back with the living ooze, now that the electro charger has landed on it, it ejected Lionel and Snarf. And if that's not bad enough, the electro charger was stuck in the ooze. And as for Mandora, she was now trapped and surrounded by it. Things were looking bad for the trio, but when Lionel breaks free, that's when he's face to face with Plutar. But unfortunately, Lionel doesn't stand a chance against Plutar. So once again, he was stuck in the ooze, just like what Snarf and Mandora did. So back with Plutar and the living ooze, who captured all three of the good guys, that's when they both pleaded their cases to say that they've caught them and it looks too easy and etc. But that's when until Mandora says, don't you know that resisting an officer is a federal offense? She asked. So after Mandora had gave Plutar a warning and gives him a choice to either surrender and turn himself in or he'll be in trouble. But Plutar pleaded his case to Mandora to say, I'm afraid your career as a chaser is over, he said. Then Plutar also pleaded a case to ask Mandora a question. Who's going to help you now? Those two? But by surprise, when Mandora broke out of the ooze, that's when Plutar panicked. He said, stop her, stop her. But instead, the living ooze just grabs Plutar by his legs. As for Mandora, she went right to where the secret weapon was kept in her electrocharger. But then, long story short, despite a minor setback, luckily for Mandora, she got the secret weapon to work. And it works on Plutar and the living ooze. So they were both defeated thanks to Mandora. But even better, Lionel and Snarf were set free from the ooze thanks to Mandora. So long story short, back with Mandora, after she explained to Lionel about how she did it and how she pulled it off, it was the soap that did the job, she said. So after Snarf was glad to hear from Mandora, she left with Plutar on her electrocharger. So that's one criminal captured and two to go. So back with Lionel and Snarf, they just heard a noise coming from nearby. And that's when they realized that the noise came from Burnout, the second criminal on the list. So luckily for Snarf and Lionel, they found a place to hide. But there's a problem. Burnout is coming towards the animal that's in danger. So Lionel and Snarf knew that there was no time to lose. They had to figure out to stop Burnout. So after Snarf had pleaded his case with Lionel to say that there was nothing that could be done about it, but on the contrary, there was a way. So both Lionel and Snarf decided to move a rock to save the animal and to stop Burnout. Well, good news, thanks to the rock, the animal managed to move out of the way, but as for Burnout, he lost control and then he crashed. But then when Lionel jumped down, he's face to face with Burnout. So long story short, after a couple misses from burnout, that's when Lionel says, I'll give you one last chance to give up. I don't want to hurt you. And Burnout says, Really? You don't want to hurt me? And so he goes after Lionel and Snarf, but again they dodged. So anyway, back with Lionel, long story short, he continues to have a battle with Burnout, and it goes on and on and on. That was until when Mandora comes back after dropping off Plutar at the exact same metal box that Lionel and Snarf found earlier. Let's just say she lends Lionel a hand or two, with a little help from a boomerang, of course. So after that, Burnout was defeated thanks to the teamwork of both Lionel and Mandora. So after Lionel returns the boomerang back to Mandora after Burnout is defeated, and then suggested that that's what Mandora's boomerang wanted to happen anyway, and of course she happens to agree with it. So that's two criminals defeated and still one to go, and that would be Quick Pick. Well, Mandora wasn't kidding when she told Lionel, Do you know something? Patrol could use someone like you, but I'm afraid Quick Pick may not be as easy to catch, she said. Also, as Mandora says in her case, Quick has a reputation of becoming a master escape artist that no one's ever known. And of course, Lionel happens to agree with her. So what she is suggesting is to have Lionel take the electro charger to take Burnout to the cell where Plutar has been captured at. And so Lionel agrees. So Lionel says, You may want to give me some instructions because, like you said, and of course Mandora's not kidding, that he's indeed a fast learner. So, after she suggests to give him a crash course lesson, and of course Snarf pleaded his case, he says it's going to be a crash course, all right. So, after a little bit of an instruction, that's when Lionel takes Burnout to the cell where Plutar is kept at. So, before Lionel can head off, that's when Mandora says, Oh, one more thing, make sure you find me by my tracking device. And so Lionel heads off. So, long story short, back with Mandora, she was trying to locate the third criminal on the list, Quick Pick. But then, long story short, things didn't look so good for Mandora when she was about to be on the right track to find Quick Pick. Instead, she sank into the ground. So back with Lionel at the metal box, after dropping off Burnt Out, that's when Lionel hears the alarm going off in her electric charger. So when Plutar had pleaded his case to say, maybe your lady friend is finished, that's when there was no time to lose for Lionel. He has to go find Mandora. So anyway, while Lionel's on his way to save Mandora, but what he doesn't know, and neither does Snarf, speaking of which, back with Mandora, she was captured by a tribe of mudhogs. But then Mandora discovers that she wasn't alone because Quick Pick was with her. He's been captured too. Then Quick Pick had explained to Mandora that what they are looking at is the king of the mudhogs. Plus, he also confessed that he's the one that took the coin purse and the sword away from both Lionel and Snarf earlier when he escaped. So, after the king of the Mudhogs had told us tried to do something with Quick Pick and Mandora, and so when Mandora was asking Quick Pick what was going on, that's when he explains that, you know something, if I don't know any better, whatever's going on, it's not very good news. And wouldn't you know it, Quick Pick was soon proven right. So what the Mudhogs did is that they were taking both Mandora and Quick Pick to where the holes are at up on the ceiling. So, unfortunately for both Quick Pick and Mandora, things looked pretty bad for them. And if things couldn't get any worse, that's when they saw a vulture that was sitting on a branch of a dead tree. Things looked pretty bad. Well, back with Lionel and Snarf, well, good news, they found Mandora and Quick Pick, but he knows that if he doesn't rescue them soon, then this could mean a serious problem. Luckily for the electrocharger, it manages to scare the vulture away, so thanks to Lionel and Snarf, good news for Mandora and Quick Pick, they were saved. But unfortunately for Lionel and Snarf, bad news for them, they were soon captured by the Mudhogs, just like what Quick Pick and Mandora did. Things look pretty bad, since now the four good guys have been captured. Well, Lionel just pleaded his kids to say if only he can get his hands on his sword and none of this would have happened. Although Quick Pick, he agrees with Lionel, but said no chance, no way. So Mandora made a suggestion with Quick Pick to say that he can escape through anything, although Quick Pick agrees, but then he says that if he did that, those mudhogs would tear him apart. Then asks the question, what good would those skills do with him? So Lionel confessed to Quick Pick that that was no ordinary sword that he took from him earlier. That was the Sword of Omens. Then Lionel also confessed that with the Sword of Omens, it can guarantee everyone to be set free. So after Quick Pick agrees with Lionel and says, okay, everybody gather around. And so that's what Mandora and Lionel did. So when the Mudhog guards saw what Mandora, Lionel, and Snarf were doing, luckily for Quick Pick, he manages to get away. Well, back with Quick Pick, good news for him, he managed to take the sword away from the King of Mudhogs. But bad news, he gets grabbed from behind. So he apologized to Lionel. So Lionel says, quick, throw me the sword. And Quick Pick did. So now that Lionel gets his sword back, good news for him, so Lionel did what any good guy would do, summon the Thundercat signal from his sword. So that's what he did. So meanwhile at Cat's Lair, the five of the Thundercats saw the signal from Lionel's sword. We have Tigra, Chitara, Panthro, and the Thunder Kittens. After they all boarded aboard the Thunder Tank is now on its way. So back with Quippic, Lionel, Mandora, and Snarf, they're still surrounded by the Mudhogs. Things were looking bad for them. So Mandora made a compliment with Lionel to say, you would make the best intellectual officer. And of course, Lionel appreciates it. But suddenly a thunder tank busts right through the wall in the underground lair. And I guess it showed up just in time to save Lionel, Snarf, and Mandora. And luckily it did. And what the thunder tank did next, it shined the flashlights right in front of the Mudhogs, and they were blinded by them. So good news, thanks to the Thunder Tank and the Thundercats, everybody managed to make it out, including Quick Pick. Oh, and speaking of Quick Pick, he now goes back to the middle box with the rest of the bad guys so that Mandora can take them to the penal prison. So meanwhile, back at the Kessler's console room, so Lionel says, you better not say that. Don't worry, I won't, Snarf says. But I know you will anyway, Lionel said. Say what? Chitara asked. Well, it looks like poor Snarf is never going to get his coin purse back thanks to Lionel's stupidness. Now you can tell that Snarf was very miserable. He didn't get his coin purse back. But that's about to change when Panthro shows up. He says, hey Snarf, are you looking for this? It's Snarf's coin purse. So Snarf did get his coin purse back thanks to Panthro. Even better, Panthro said to Snarf that Mandora had left it so that Panthro could pick it up. And luckily he did. So Snarf says, see, I told you. And Lionel says, don't you dare. And then Snarf says that everything's going to be working out just fine. He's not kidding. But then Snarf says, do you know what your problem is? And then everyone says, you're just too curious. So yep, Snarf said it all right. Maybe Lionel should be more careful next time. So that ends episode 10.